and welcome to Blossom Sandwich Sews. My name is Yvette and today I will be bringing you my rendition of the 5 questions, 1 take tag slash challenge. So this challenge was started by Lindsay, I think it is, who runs a Facebook group for like sewing vloggers and the like on Facebook. So I'm not technically part of that group yet, although I have requested to join. So hopefully that will get approved eventually. So hopefully it's okay that I'm joining in with this. But I've seen quite a few sewing vloggers that I'm subscribed to doing this challenge, and today in Jen's sewing room said that she's inviting everyone to join it. And I think the idea is kind of to get as many people involved, and it's just sort of a fun way to get to know people. So you may have noticed I haven't posted any videos for a little while, so I have been on holiday and I didn't have any you know, backlog of videos that I could share. So I'll tell you more about what I've been up to in a future video, probably like a Friday sews or something. Right, so let's crack on with the questions. So the first question is, what has your sewing journey looked like? So I did do a video about this early on my channel, so I'll put in a card somewhere, and you can have that. If you click on the card, it will add that video to your queue if you want to watch it next. Basically, I'm fairly new to sewing. I only started, so I got my machine in 2019, like around March 2019, and started with all the classic beginner projects of like, I don't know, pillowcases and tote bags. I made loads of tote bags. So I think everyone I know's got a horrible tote bag. And yeah, I was basically inspired to start garment sewing by an advert that I saw for the Stitch Festival. So I recently went to the Knitting and Stitching show, which is like quite a similar thing. So a lot of the brand and like business owners that I met at the Knitting and the Stitch Festival when I was like really new to sewing, I managed to meet up with recently again. So that was really lovely opportunity to meet those. So yeah, if you want to hear more about how I got influenced by a Facebook ad to become a dressmaker, then I'll link in that video. But yeah, I basically just taught myself sewing with like YouTube videos and stuff initially for the you know, the basic beginner projects, and then I use like sewing patterns and the Tilly and the Buttons Make It Simple book for like more basic like beginner garment patterns. So yeah, I'm basically a fairly new sewist, so I'm learning a lot along the way, so that's really exciting. Right, question number 2, describe your sewing space. So my sewing space is in my main room of my house. So I live in a 1-bedroom flat, so we basically have the bedroom, the bathroom, and then the everything else room. So my sewing is also in the everything else room. So that room is like the kitchen, the dining area, and the living room, and my husband's study, and also now my sewing space. So yeah, I've got my sewing machine set up on the dining table. And I usually tend to leave that out. We're quite casual, we just usually eat on the sofa, so it's not really an issue that my stuff is clogging up the dining table unless we have people coming over, and then I have to squirrel it all away. But I did manage to get a big cupboard. We managed to squeeze a big cupboard in, like it fits perfectly in the space that we have, so that's like really satisfying. That's like basically a floor to ceiling wardrobe type cupboard, but it's got shelves and pull out basket drawer things. So that is where I keep most of my stuff and where I can sort of shove it all when it needs to be packed away. So that's where all my fabric and everything is. So I don't actually have a video about my sewing space yet, but doing a tour of it is definitely a video that I would like to do at some point, and hopefully you guys would be interested in that sort of video. So one of the prompts here about describing your sewing space is it messy or tidy? So mine is especially when I'm like during the process of a project, it becomes very messy. I'm not very like good at sort of keeping stuff tidy as I go, but usually like my method of working is that I will do just one project at a time. I'll cut one out, I'll sew it, finish it, and then move on to the next one, which I think is quite good because I've got a big cutting mat on the dining table as well, and it forces me to like clean down after every project so that then the table is clear enough to be able to cut on it. Otherwise, I think I'd just end up with several projects all piled up and it would get a bit crazy. Obviously now with the pandemic, sometimes I'm working from home as well. So then I have to sort of clear a bit of a space on that table as well to put out my laptop. So yeah, it's not ideal. Like, what I do aspire to have a like dedicated sewing room at some time, but yeah, it is workable. It's good. And I've got, you know, a few little hacks for if you don't have a lot of space in your sewing area. Like I use a pressing mat rather than having an ironing board up, because that seems to, like, wherever you put it is like blocking an area, and I don't know, my husband can end up getting penned into his little bit of the room, and so it's not like it wouldn't be feasible to leave an ironing board up all the time, but it's annoying to have to like get the whole thing out every time you need to press like one seam. So yeah, if you're a small sewing space person, definitely look into pressing mats. I think mine was from like Lakeland or something. Right, so that's my sewing space. Question number 3. What is it like to be a sewing YouTuber? So I don't know if I would really consider myself as like a YouTuber. That kind of seems like how you describe yourself if that was like a source of income for you, if not your career. So this is, you know, I'm quite new to doing this channel. I've only been doing it a few months. So I would describe myself just as like a person who happens to have a YouTube channel. Like, maybe some people class that as being a YouTuber, but for me, it's not like, I don't know, a serious thing. But it is something that I'm really enjoying. So the prompt is, does it meet your expectations? So I don't really know what I was expecting, to be honest. It's like just sewing as a whole. It's one of those things where I kind of had fancied doing it for a bit and then eventually sort of started it on a whim and didn't really consider like what would come of it. I was just like, this could be fun. And then eventually I was like, let's just give it a go and see what comes of it. So yeah, I'm really enjoying it actually, and I'm really enjoying like the interaction in the comments. I think that's my favorite bit, and it feels like, because I've been into Instagram for quite a while as well, like sharing my makes and writing quite long captions and stuff, but I feel like it's more interaction in a way, like a bit more on a personal level somehow on YouTube sometimes, because you know, when people comment, then you know they've watched, you know, all the way through your video. And also I found it really good for like getting advice as well. Like in a previous video I said I had like 3 patterns that I was considering and which one's your favorite, and then a lot of people had commented and, you know, said, oh, you should get the Adriana dress, and that's like so helpful. Like I just really value that. Anyone who comments on my video, just know that I really, really appreciate that, because it's just so nice to have like direct feedback, especially if it's on something constructive, like helping me make a decision. Because sewing can be a bit of a lonely hobby sometimes. Like you tend to do it at home on your own. So then sometimes if you get stuck on something, it's like it's difficult. And like where I am a fairly new sewer and I taught myself basically how to sew, I don't have a lot of like in-person friends that I know who also sew. So it's been a really good way to get to meet people. So I think I've rambled on about that question enough, but yeah, I am enjoying it, my sewing YouTuber life. And yeah, hopefully I'll be able to keep doing it and it will keep growing and I can chat to more lovely people. So yeah, I think the sewing YouTube, like, it's not just like with my videos, I'm like watching everyone else's as well. So it really does feel like a sort of little community, like you're chatting to people, even though it's not like live. It's like, you know, when you chat to a friend and have a little catch up, but instead of it's like, how are you doing? How are you doing? It's like, you know, you do your 20-minute video about how you're doing and then you watch their 20-minute video about how they're doing. And it's just, I don't know, it just feels like quite a personal connection, being able to actually see people chatting about what they're up to and with sewing and stuff. Because I know that like some people, if, you know, non-sewing people, if I was like, oh, I've just started making this pattern, they wouldn't know what I was on about and just be like, okay, fine. But it's really nice to be able to communicate with people who also share your interest. So question number 4 is, what is your most memorable project? So this is like such a hard question for me, because where I am quite new to sewing, like I've only really been sewing garments for like a year, or I guess just over. So basically every project that I do, I learn something new, like working with a new type of fabric, doing a new technique like zips or buttonholes, or a new pattern or a new hack. Like I very rarely make the exact same thing twice. I will usually, because I like to sort of have variation in my wardrobe, so I'll usually try and be like, oh, I'm going to make this, but I'm going to take out the button placket and just do it on the fold, or I'm going to lengthen the sleeves next time. Like there's always little things you can change to, you know, make it feel like a new garment and also a new project to work on. So yeah, I don't know, everything I have made has been like, I don't know, a whole new thing. I mean, that's a bit of a cop-out answer. But yeah, from the prompts, so like big event. So I did make this dress that I'll put in a picture of, that I wore to a family wedding. So that was really special to be able to wear a dress that I had made. So that dress was like the Fibre Mood normal blouse, but I then hacked it into a dress with tiered gathered skirts. And I got so many compliments on that dress at the wedding, and it was so special to be able to say, oh yeah, I made it. So that was a really good one. It was a highlight. Also, obviously, I couldn't go without mentioning the Battenberg dress. That was something like one of those sort of crazy projects that I made, and I was be like, is this going to be like a thing? Like, is this going to be wearable, or is this going to be terrible? But yeah, I really like it. I just think it's so fun, and it's something that you would never like buy in a shop. So yeah, that is something that I have worn a few times, not loads because it is quite extra. But yeah, I've really enjoyed making that. I've now just dropped my notes, and since this is a one take, you're gonna have to bear with me while I bend down. Oh, here we go. I mean, I think I'm doing pretty well so far. I don't want to jinx it, but usually I have to do a lot of editing of cutting out all my ums, and sometimes I like forget what I was going to say and trail off and sort of stare at the ceiling for a bit. So I've spared you that in my previous videos, but we'll see how it goes. There's only one question of, oh, actually, back on most memorable projects, it also says, what's your biggest fail? And definitely that was the time I sewed through my finger. So that was when I was making the Tilly and the Buttons Sapphire trousers, which is in the Make It Simple book. And it was the first time I'd ever tried using a sewing pattern for a garment. And I got quite far with it. And then I was like finishing the edges of the seams on the trouser. And like, I didn't have an overlocker at the time. So I was just doing a zigzag. And if you've ever done a zigzag finishing edge, excuse me, you know that it can take quite a long time. So I think like I was just going, and like the whole leg is a huge sort of seam to finish. So I was just like going, and then like, I don't know, just lost concentration, wasn't really looking. And I think I was pushing the fabric with my hand sort of like this, managed to get this finger underneath the needle, like somehow. And then the needle went like through my fingernail and then back out the tip of my finger. So yeah, that was a bit of a disaster. And my husband heard the like sort of horrible noise that my machine made afterwards and was just like, are you okay? And I was like, not really. So yeah, that was a bit of a disaster. I did finish it in the end, those trousers. I kind of, it knocked my confidence a little bit. But because I'd already, like at that point, I just bought the book. I'd started listening to the Love to Sew podcast. I'd like just started getting into like Instagram community, and I feel like it happened just after the tipping point where I was really starting to get into it, and I felt like there was so much like positivity in the community and everyone being like, sewing's such a great hobby, and I was really keen to be able to make my own clothes, and yeah, and then this happens. But I felt like the timing of it was like just late enough that I didn't fully give up, if that makes any sense. So I did like not finish those. I sort of left them to a side and then came back to them because obviously I had to wait for my finger to get better. It was fine, but I did end up having to go to A&E because we called 111 and they asked a load of weird questions and then were just like, you should go to A&E. So then I had to sit in A&E for a few hours, and then they did an x-ray to see if there was any machine needle in my bone, and luckily there wasn't. So then they sort of just pulled it out. Anyway, I hope that wasn't too gory of a description for you. So yeah, I set aside the sapphire trousers for a bit because I was a bit like, oh, do I really want to like go back straight away to that? And then I made the Dominique skirt, which is like probably the most basic Tilly and the Buttons pattern, which I feel like their patterns are already aimed at beginners. So yeah, I did that and that was okay. Didn't lose any limbs. So yeah, then I could go back to it, and it was salvaged, and I have worn them quite a lot actually. And I put in a pink Coat Club label that's made with blood, sweat and tears, because that one literally was. So yeah, those are my memorable projects. But yeah, I'd be really interested in the comments to hear about your memorable projects. Like, some people have made insane things like wedding dresses and all sorts. But yeah, those are some of my, like, a special occasion project, a fun project, and then a disastrous one that was eventually salvaged. I feel like a lot of my projects do go wrong at least one stage. So yeah, I don't think like an error happening would make a project memorable for me particularly, because all of them have some level of unpicking. But there you go, that's just my sewing approach. And then the last question is, what is one quote or saying or piece of advice that you that would resonate with your sewing or YouTubing? So mine would, I did have a little think about this before I started recording the video, and my one quote would probably just be to be yourself. I know it sounds a bit corny probably, but I think it just, you know, like with sewing, if you make things that are you, like your style, then you're much more likely to wear them and enjoy making them than like if you make something because, I don't know, it's the trend, or you feel like as a beginner sewer you should then start developing an interest in vintage clothing. Like, if that's just never been something you're interested in, then you're probably not going to enjoy making or wearing it. So what's the point? Like, you may as well look for patterns that are your sort of style already, and you know, buy fabric that's in your colors that, you know, will suit you, rather than just, you know, random stuff that catches your eye. Like, it's really difficult when you start sewing because you can get tempted by all these wild quilting cottons that have this crazy print on. But then if you're a person who likes to wear, you know, plains and neutral colors, then that's going to sit in your stash. And also just be yourself if you wanted to start a YouTube or just generally on social media, because it can be quite difficult. Like, it is quite a lot of work, like filming videos. It's basically like talking to somebody else, but you don't get any like direct feedback at the time. So it can be like weirdly socially exhausting in a way. So I think if you're doing that and then on top of that sort of trying to act in a way that's doesn't come naturally to you, then I think that would be, I don't know if you'd be able to keep that up. So yeah, that was my advice for sewing and YouTubing. Just like be yourself, and also just to enjoy it. Like, you know, it's a hobby, but like both of these things are a hobby really. So if you're not enjoying it, then you're not doing it right, basically. And also, like with sewing, I was going to mention this actually in my sewing journey, question 1. I'm at like a different sort of stage in my sewing journey now that I've just reached, where at the start of my sewing journey, like the first sort of year, I was really, really keen. I wanted to be sewing all the time. I wanted to make all the things. And now I've just sort of like hit this sort of hump where I've made a lot of clothes now. I do need some things, but I don't need like everything. And also I don't have as much time now, or as much energy, like with the winter coming up and the darker evenings, and I'm working more, and just like I've got more stuff that seems to be going on. So like I haven't actually sewn for about 3 weeks now because I've had other stuff going on. Like, I packed up my sewing machine to bring it on holiday with me, and then I went on a different holiday after that, and so then like it's just sort of still in the bag. And I think it can be tempting to feel like I'm a sewist, now I'm always sewing all the time, and then that can be like a sort of a pressure on you, and then you could end up not enjoying it because you're like, why aren't I sewing? I'm not, you know, making enough, sort of thing. So yeah, like that's sort of part of the whole like just enjoy yourself thing. Like just because sewing is your hobby, you don't have to do it all the time. And I think that's something that's important to mention, because I think a lot of people are feeling similarly. I know Jess from So What If I Sew has been talking about this recently as well, because she's got a new job fairly recently and she's finding she doesn't have as much time or energy to sew, and it can be quite difficult to adjust, like when you've got used to, like, you know, doing your hobby at a certain pace or in a certain way, then it can feel weird to then change that, and like maybe like feel like, especially with the social media, and if you've got a YouTube channel and stuff, you kind of feel the sense of needing to like keep up in a way. But yeah, just be yourself, have fun, and like do what like works for you in the moment, and that doesn't always have to be the same. That can change with time. So that was kind of a bit of a long ramble. But yeah, hopefully I will catch up with you soon. I've got quite a few things I want to share with you. So I've got my haul from the knitting and stitching show that I went to in London last weekend. So I will get out all that stuff, show you it. Some of it is stuff that's like from well-known companies like on Instagram and stuff, but they haven't released that range yet online, so that's quite exciting. And yeah, I don't know, hopefully I'll have more time to film at the weekend. So yeah, we'll see what I get around to filming, and then you can enjoy it. Oh yeah, I was also gonna let you know about my knitting update. So I'll probably do a separate video of that for people that aren't super into knitting, so that I've got like more time to chat about it for people who are interested in it. Otherwise, I think my sewing video, like my sewing update, will end up in a really long video that's mostly about knitting, and people will be like, what's happened here? So yeah, before I go, I'll just mention that I'm wearing one of my Norma Hack dresses. So this is a super lovely viscose that I got from Sew Me Sunshine, and some more vintage buttons that were from my nan's stash. And I did a hack to lengthen the sleeves a little bit. But yeah, that's it from me. I have now reached over my 500 subscribers, which is really amazing. So thank you so much to everyone that's subscribed. Linked to this video, I did ages ago say that I was going to do a Q&A episode, or like an Ask Me Anything type episode. So I never got around to filming that. So if you, and I've got a few new subscribers since then. So if you are interested in asking me any questions or anything related to the answers that I said in this video, just write Q&A and then your question in the comments below, and I will add that into my Q&A video whenever I eventually get around to filming that. And yeah, thanks for watching, and happy sewing, and I'll see you around. Bye!